People who had abstinence-only sex education. What was the most outrageous or untrue thing you were told? If a man ejaculates on or near your body, the sperm will swim around and find your vagina and you will get pregnant. Breaking news: sperm more accurate and lethal than ballistic missiles. They are bullseye stick missiles. Having sex with one person is like having sex with 100 people. Having sex with 0 people is like having sex with 99 people. Later. Virgins. My girlfriend's sex ed program in middle school included a wedding dress that they splattered with red paint. What the heck happened here? I am assuming it symbolizes the blood of first sex, which, if is before marriage, taints the pureness of the ritual and thus ruins everything. TLDR: sex bad, do not duck beforeing. Idiots. If you're a girl, you should stretch out first. If you do it right, it won't be painful. I got this one from a freaking doctor. Hugging a boy will get you pregnant. My dad pointed to a teenage couple hugging when I was a kid and told me that's how you get pregnant. A month later at the fair, my aunt put my 5-year-old cousin on the back of my horse and told him to wrap his arms around my waist to hold on. My heart sank. Later that day I shamefully told my dad that my 5-year-old cousin got me pregnant. How did he explain himself hugging you? Dad never hugged her. If a gay man and a lesbian woman have a baby, the baby will be trans. So that is what they mean by the gay agenda. No. The gay agenda is a leather-bound planner, and it is very expensive. So I'm Irish and Catholic. Growing up in Dublin, we had church-sanctioned sex education. Some of the highlights: all penises are the same size when erect. We were 14 and this was hilarious to us. Being gay is just a phase. No method of birth control is reliable, including oral sex and body rubbing. Laughing my butt off. Why on earth would the thing about dick size be in church? Sanctioned sex ed. Was told the same thing in sex ed in Utah. We all laughed. If you are willing to make out with someone, you will end up having sex with them because you passed the point of no return on the mountain climb to sex. This is somehow the weirdest to me. Yeah, we all had to mark our line of what behaviors we would not go past with a big line marking the point of no return, so needless to say no one put theirs past that line. I feel like my point of no return happens right about the same time I start having sex with them. Like, I can still stop having sex with them, but I can no longer prevent the sex we started having. The instructor gave all the boys in the class chewing gum and let them chew on it for a few minutes. Then she asked them if any of them wanted to share. Of course none did. Then she asked if they did not want to share gum. Why would they want to share sex partners? This was in a co-ed class, so all the girls in the class got to see too. That would not have worked on the guys I went to school with. They would have switched gum immediately just to be contrarian. Yep. When I was in middle school late 80s, we literally would have made a game of spitting the gum into each other's mouths to be contrary. The horrible memories from wrestling. Coach, we are chewing the same gum at the same time. What do you call this? That the actual vagina opening is as small as the tip of a pencil. I also never knew women did not pee from their vaginas until I was 16. I am 19 now and learned more from shit posts on the internet than I ever had in school. To the amount of people who seem to not know the latter is astonishing. Women have urethras and that is where they pee from. No, you would not accidentally do it with the urethra. My friend who is female didn't know that you don't pee from your vagina until she was 16. She said something about having to pee but not having an extra tampon, so she couldn't take hers out, and her cousin was like, you don't have to take your tampon out to pee. It's a different hole. I had this exact conversation with my co-worker last year. She is 35 now. I was discussing cups and she was really perplexed how I wore it for 12 hours if I was peeing all day. Did I take it out each time? Oh, no honey. Your urethra is above your vagina opening. Blank stem I what? It was a very educational talk for her. Now she just would not wear tampons because if the string gets wet she is grossed out. I told her to duck it up out of the way between her lips. She just blank stared again, so I gave up on that conversation entirely. What gets me is recommending cups to people and having them be like, but then you have to stick your fingers up there in the ear. And I am just sitting there like, you have had a kid and you have never stuck your fingers up your own you know what. Forget it. I was given a diagram of the female anatomy in which the clitoris had been erased as in someone went into MS Paint and whited it out on a line drawing of the exterior of the vulva. The urethra, vagina, labia, anus were labeled. And then at the top of the labia, it was whited out. How many girls would walk away from that convinced something was wrong with them? It is absolutely disgusting the way we hide this kind of knowledge behind locks and keys. I thought my clit was a dick as a young child. That would absolutely reinforce that. When I was first figuring out masturbation, I thought my clit was the entrance to my urethra. I had wonderful sex ed. It worried me that rubbing that area felt good, like that is where I piss out of. Why does this feel nice? I had to Google a bunch of articles and diagrams to figure out what it was and how my actual anatomy looks like. The used pair of shoes analogy. Maybe if some people would just wash their damn feet and wear socks, the shoes would not get dirty. If you only wear the same pair of shoes for 40 years, they're going to get pretty gross and worn out. Better to have lots and lots of shoes. I was convinced that saliva was involved in the baby-making process. Not that you had kissed someone and then boom pregnant, but that someone's saliva over time would make their baby look like you. The more saliva, the stronger the resemblance. Long story short, I spit in my cousin's drinks for a solid 2 months because I wanted her baby, she was pregnant at the time, to look like me, who was 8. Each of this was about 25 years ago. And also I am a woman. That is how absolutely terrible my sex education was. Was the baby the spitting image of you? Opposite story. I went to a Catholic high school. My health teacher was a progressive. So she closed the door and said, listen, okay, sure, masturbation is a sin or whatever, but it is actually fine. You gotta, clean out the pipes once in a while. Now if your friends ask you to go to the movies and your answer is sorry, gotta stay home and jerk off, probably step it back a bit. Had a sister teach sex ed in a Catholic elementary school. She flat out gave correct names, body parts and their functions. In 4th grade she also explained exactly how to use a tampon. Sounds like she was pissed about the shitty sex ed she received. Too many teen parents. Better teen know the truth and maybe go at it than uneducated idiots procreate. That nun clearly had to deal with poop. My teacher said anal sex makes your anus irreversibly loose. She said butt plugs were used by gay men 24/7 to keep their anuses from leaking because they were all loose from anal sex. I really dislike that woman. LOL, that is the literal opposite of what butt plugs are for. Went to public school and had real sex ed, but had a history teacher who told us that sex before marriage is a sin because every time you have sex you get pregnant, and if a kid is born outside of wedlock they're going to heck, and we will also go to heck for damning the baby's soul before it is even born. She said condoms and any other birth control is an insult to God and a way for atheists to try and outsmart him. She did not work there after that year. Wonder why? Atheists tried to outsmart him. This makes God look very bad when you realize that birth control actually works. Christians, God does not make mistakes. God gives humans the critical thinking skills to create birth control in literally hundreds of forms. Christians do not use birth control. It is outsmarting God. God me damn it. This is probably pretty tame. But sophomore year our teacher told us using multiple condoms at a time increases its effectiveness. I then asked my mom the same thing. And her whole job is to teach safe sex to youth. Spoiler alert, do not layer condoms. It sounds good in practice. But you are actually weakening the condoms and wasting them. Uterus sex ed policy was his poop. This woman once compared a teenage girl who has had premarital sex as chewed up bubble gum. She then switched the comparison to a pair of worn-out shoes. Poop you not. Ours was a piece of tape. And they stuck it to a few guys and pulled it off and then said, now who's going to want this tape now? Not me. But to be fair, I would not have sex with a brand new piece of tape either. Condoms do not always work, so it is better to not use them. If you ejaculate on a girl, yes, she will get pregnant. Regardless of if you had sex or not. Boys get so horny sometimes they cannot control themselves. So girls, it is up to you to remove temptation for the boys. Birth control pills disrupt a girl's hormones so badly she will become barren. As a guy, I ducking hate the boys cannot control themselves myth. It just hurts everybody. That every time a girl had sex I was giving away a part of my soul. So each sex partner whittled away bits of my soul. If I had sex before marriage, my God-given husband would only get a tiny scrap instead of a full half, and thus would not be able to love me as much as he would if I did waited. Honestly, it is pretty confusing. This was taught in my Christian private school. Giving half your soul to a person sounds very dangerous. Much safer to split it between multiple vessels. As a guy, you have to master tantric sex so that you can absorb power from all of your partners while giving none yourself. Once you have enough, you can summon an elder god or perhaps a lesser eldritch horror if you are not that smart. The teacher said that you can only really love one sexual partner, and that is why it is so important that your spouse be your first and only partner. One of my classmates raised her hand and said, "My mom died when I was a baby and my dad has been married to my stepmom for 10 years. Does that mean he only loves one of them?" The teacher just looked uncomfortable and moved on to how premarital sex causes depression. Oh good God. Poor kid. Those teachings are bucked. My dad killed himself when I was in 4th grade. I went to Catholic school. The nuns still thought it would be appropriate to dedicate an entire class period to talk about how taking your own life was a sin and describe all the horrible things that happen in heck against those who commit this mortal sin. I was freaking 9. After class, I was singled out from my classmates and told to step outside. The nun then proceeded to tell me that I looked distressed and that if I needed to talk, she was there. She ducking you. She was at the ducking funeral. I cannot understand how you could be so unbelievably cruel to a small child who is grieving. I am so sorry this happened to you, it breaks my heart. 3 years ago we lost my 17-year-old niece to suicide. My family is extremely Catholic, so I panicked right before the funeral as I had my 7-year-old with me and was worried there may be some similar themes. There thankfully were not. The priest ended up talking about how special she was and all of her accomplishments and how much she was loved and all of the things she did to help others. Then he said, but sometimes someone is hurt on the inside so bad that all the love and support and good things are not enough to heal them, and sometimes they just need to go be with the Lord to feel better again. I have never cried so hard in my life. I am a lifelong atheist. But he got the first part right. Her mother took her life 5 years before my niece, and he was 150% right. She was just too hurt inside, and all the love and support was just not enough to fix her hurt. I just remember this video I was shown in my church youth group of a guy holding a brick over a teen's head and saying there was a 1% chance he was going to smash his face in. He was trying to illustrate how the 99% effectiveness of birth control does not seem so good when put in different terms. But yeah, no. Those are the actions of a psychopath. They did this to us, except they gave 6 students a piece of chocolate and said one was laxative. Told us 1 in 6 condoms doesn't work. Then later they revealed there was no laxative and they just wanted us to think about it. LOL. Imagine how many more people and STDs there would be if 1 out of every 6 condoms failed. At a near 20% fail rate, would they be used at all? The effectiveness rate is meant to be annually anyway, not by use. So assuming a 20% failure rate, your example, that would mean that roughly 20% of people using condoms as their sole birth control method would get pregnant in a year. Not 20% chance of failure each time. So it would not be as bad as these dumb teachers make it seem, even if the failure rate was as high as they claim. We were told that a G-spot and clitoris female orgasm doesn't exist, and that if your hymen is broken before you are married, you may as well give up because a man would never want you, which is wrong in so many different ways. There was a girl in that class that had been recently raped that just put her head down and started crying in the back of the class. Everyone knew about it somehow. Rumors spread quick here. The teacher knew about it and either said it as a dig at her or just said it and didn't care. He also stated to never use tampons since you basically lose your virginity from them. Thankfully, high school students are much more aware about these topics now, so everyone would make fun of the teacher behind his back, and many understandably hated him after his comment about hymens. I went to a small, large in comparison to the other schools in my state public school in Idaho. This was also not long ago. If I have to guess, it was in 2017-2018. On a lighter side note, I can list off a couple funny comments I heard from the boys during that class. Women have 3 holes. Either been looking up the wrong poop online, I thought that if you had sex in a hot tub you couldn't get pregnant because the sperm will boil and die. 30 different versions of I thought girls peed out of their vaginas but my personal favorite was wouldn't it get annoying to have to take out your tampon every time you needed to pee. I imagine it's gross to put back in. Wait for 7 days. I thought it lasted like 20 minutes. Damn, I'd be pissed. 2 What the heck? You're telling me I can get a vasectomy and still jack it? Why isn't it done like a goddamn flu shot then? 1 Condoms do not work. Why? Because sperm are microscopic. STDs are even smaller. And you think a piece of plastic is going to protect you? 2 The cookie analogy. I am sure there are multiple names for this. But the idea is, who wants to eat a cookie when everyone is already bitten out of it?